white. All my Africans at church, because we have 52 nations in the church, they say I'm an anemic African. If I take a bit more medicine, I'll go black. What a privilege to be here. And I found when I became a Christian, I was a racist. And I used to say, why don't everybody go back to why don't they go back where they were born? And I found they all lived in Birmingham. So that didn't work. Living in Solihull, it was 95% white area, not racist, that's the way we are. And so the Lord, we're not a city church, and the Lord said to me many years ago, would you like a multinational church? And I went, yeah, no chance of getting one. And we have 52 nations in the church now, we're not a city, we have 2,000 people in the congregation. And God's doing a great thing, and I counted it a privilege that with a lot of Africans came over and other nations, from New Zealand, Australia, they've got no grandparents. And so I'm a granddad, or as they say in South Africa, Opa, and I become, I was going to be thrown off already. And this lady's very frightening. She's thrown every speaker off since I've been. I'm going to read this because some of you have come a long way and you want to go home, even though you're Africans, you've now got used to not 7-hour services, haven't you? I just got back from Nigeria, and we went to one service, and 5 hours later they put me on to preach. And then I was so tired, they took me back off again. So I'm just doing a lot of work in Africa now. I'm inputting into 10 countries there, and just come back from Nigeria, and Kenya, and Rwanda. And we're going to go back into the southern parts of Africa. We're going back to Zimbabwe, we're going to South Africa, we're going to Malawi. By the end of the year, we'll have about 5 million people that we oversee in Africa, and 15 countries. But I want to speak, and I want to read this, on abuse. Because abuse takes on many forms. I suffered from it, and there has to come a time when we don't become brave, we deal with the issue. Rubbish brought me people, and they've come in, and as a Christian, the Bible talks about gifts of the Spirit, and one I use a lot is word of knowledge. Where I can walk into a room, and I can tell somebody their name, and I've never met them. I walked into an airport once, and called a girl over, and I said, how are you? And she said, how do you know my name? I said, God told me. I can walk into a garage and talk to the receptionist and tell her she's being abused by a boyfriend. And the Bible talks about Jesus doing that to a woman at the well. He did that to a man under a tree. And it means it's giving you an idea that God understands you. And so often when she's brought people to me, after about 20 minutes, I've said, tell me what happened when you were 17. Tell me what happened to you when you were 20. And we've had people completely, absolutely transformed. And so I want to talk about what is abuse. And the opportunity for us just to pray at the end, even if you're not a Christian. I find lots of non-Christians ask me to pray, Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims, and they just say, will you pray for me? And it's as gentle as that. Now what does the word abuse mean? And then maybe you better say, have you experienced it? It means to use something for the wrong purpose in a way that is harmful or morally wrong. Say that again. It's to use something for the wrong purpose in a way that is harmful or morally wrong. You know, in a sense, I lecture around the world and I say there's a difference between a leader and a father. A leader surrounds himself or herself with people that can take them to where they want to go. They surround themselves with people to take them where they want to go. But a father surrounds himself with children so he can send them to where he's never been. A father always wants his children to do better than himself. A leader is threatened by that. So this can manifest itself in various ways. There may be a similarity in approach, but each individual has a unique experience. You may say, you know, I've been sexually molested, I've been financially molested, and you may also say, yes, so have I, but it's never the same as what you've been through. So when people say, I understand, only partially. See, there can be aspects of being treated cruelly, rudely, or used in a wrong way. It can be emotional, physical, mental, financial, sexual. It can be all those things. Let's get this. Come on, Lord. Oh, that's great. It's gone to my diary, which means There's some of you want to book me up to come to your church. Those guys telling me. See, one definition has an additive wording, and it means abuse is excessive and habitual, which means abuse very rarely only happens once. Once it has seeded, it continues. We can also, when trying to establish ourselves in a new environment, you come over here, as we've heard, new country, new area, you can find the critical experiences that have been experienced in the past re-emerge. They come back. If a thing's not dealt with, it will come back. Or it will colour our perceptions of future decisions. If we don't deal with the past, it paralyses our present and robs us of a future. If we don't deal with our past, it paralyses our present and it mystifies the future. We have a little saying in England that's been around for many years. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But that's not true. That actually is opposite. I've had many bones in my body broken. I cannot remember how some of them were broken, but I can remember most of the negative words that had been said over me as a kid. Both physical abuse and verbal abuse leave scars. Often verbal abuse can be carried for a lifetime. And the reason that is, if you're not a Christian, let me explain something. The Bible says that when we speak, it has spiritual overtones. In the Bible, God spoke things into being. God said, let there be, and it was so. So that when we open our mouth, there's a spirituality about it, which means when we speak over people's lives, we either release them or bind them, we either curse them or bless them. Because there's power in the tongue. And I'll come on to that in a moment. As a Christian pastor, I've over the last almost 50 years now, yes I am that old, experienced most forms of abuse. As a child, I came from a loving family who did everything to encourage me in life. However, I was born in 1945 and I was born with acute dyslexia which nobody understood. In 1950, when I went to school, I was verbally abused for 10 years. I was being called stupid, thick, lazy, fit for nothing, never make a success, beaten by other children, disciplined by the teachers for not being able to read or write. I had no value in my life at all. I was born a twin and the other died, and I used to cry myself to sleep, wishing I was dead with my twin. It manifested itself in phobic reactions to people. I could not get near people at all, I'd hide from them. I could not get near animals, I'd hyperventilate. I'd hyperventilate if I was in the dark. I'd hyperventilate if I was near water. I could not become near dentists or doctors. I never had my teeth done until I was 25. And I left school in 1960 in England, unable to read and write at all. I could only write my name and address, and wishing I was dead. My parents didn't do this to me. My school did this to me. My friends did this to me. My teachers did this to me. I did it to me. Because as a man thinks in his heart, so he is. And if you're told you're stupid long enough, if you're told you're a bad wife long enough, if you're told you're a delinquent kid long enough, you might as well become it. Because it's the only endorsement you're being given. I've counselled brain surgeons who think they're a failure because their parents have said you're not as good as your brother. Never, ever compare your kids. They're individuals. They're not there to promote your reputation, you're there to give them one. It wasn't until I became a Christian that I developed the strength of character to face every one of these. I'd like to tell you that I prayed and every one went. No, it didn't. I had to face them, every one, head on. I had to learn to swim at 42. I had to learn to be able to go into a room without the light on, without hyperventilating. I had to learn how to touch animals. I had to learn how to face people. I had to learn to go and have all my teeth done and go and have medical treatment. And now I'm only chief chaplain of a big group of hospitals. I'm dealing with the dead dying all the time now. Now these are the things it can do, abuse. Number one, it can play on the default and expand and distort it. Let me say that again. It can play on a default and expand and distort it. It can actually find something that is weak, but can distort it beyond proportion. Because if we didn't have a weakness, we couldn't be abused. If I'm 6'5" and I'm 20 stone and I'm a boxing champion, you will not physically abuse me. So abuse finds a weakness. It has to. And then distorts our view so that we only see weakness and we don't see strength. So through a distorted continuance of verbal attack, or physical disability, or lack of being able to reach the expected standards of activities, for instance, academically, sport or social interaction, what happens is there's a weakness. We're not very good at sport, so we're abused. We're not very good academically, so we're abused. We may be overweight, underweight, too tall, too short. We may walk with a limp, and that becomes the abuse. That's what everybody calls the stories. That's the way that, and they've taken something which is a reality, but they blow it to a point that it becomes fantasy. So when I broke my nose twice, everybody smiled at me. I thought they were laughing at my nose, so I was just standing here like this. There was a deformity, but the way people laughed at me, they made it into a major problem. So, number 2. Abuse can seek to control. By deflating one's level of self-respect, self-confidence and self-esteem. Once you've lost any self-respect, someone's got control over you. Because often if you said to your kids, don't let them push you around. So why are you letting them do that? But it's happened to you. A husband, a man, a father, somebody at work, that controls you because you've got no self-respect. If you've got self-respect, you wouldn't let them do it. But you've lost your self-respect. You've given it up. You've been told you didn't deserve it, you didn't have it. And then number 3 means isolation from others. Abuse can only succeed when you are not telling anybody. So it isolates you. The abuse has established itself when you either withdraw from others for the fear of the abuser, what he may do, or she, or the belief that others would believe them and not you. Because you convinced yourself you are to blame. See, life, like all abuse, the desire is to bring the abused into the belief that it is factually their own fault. They must have instigated it. Why would this have happened to me if it wasn't my fault? And they tell me it was my fault. This is often seen in sexual abuse. The abused individual often carries the guilt and the shame and can actually begin to believe that they've been encouraging the act of abuse. Well, it must be my fault because why is it only happening to me? And he tells me that I started it. See, the abuser will, if challenged, often insist that they were only joking and you took them seriously. And it was your fault for being sensitive or lacking a sense of humour or claim that you actually instigated in the first place. So the guilt comes upon us. Now, the consequences of all abuse is often the loss of confidence in your own values. You no longer have values because they've been taken off you. And the ability to evaluate situations rationally. You can no longer be rational because everybody else can see what the answer is, but you can't. I saw somebody the other week where I gave a diagnosis which was identical to a consultant psychiatrist, which was identical to friends, which was identical to the family, and the person listened to me but could not see themselves because they'd lost the ability to evaluate logic. Everybody could see the problem, except the person, because they had given away their control of evaluation. See, the abuser seeks compliance as this feeds their need for control. You see, the abuser is always abused. They need this sense of control. Most abusers have deep-seated inadequacies that need dominance to gain position, power and prominence. Don't care if it was a prime minister or a minister. If you look under a person who's an abuser, they are inadequate. People watch pornography because they have got no self-confidence in their sexuality and sex life. A person who's got a very happy sex life does not watch pornography. Hello? Do you understand, white man? Am I speaking black? See, as a Christian, I see the reality of these things. James 3:10 says this, out of the same mouth comes praise and cursing. And he said, this shouldn't be. You shouldn't be lifting people up and then putting them down. See, other versions simply say blessings and curses. And I know sometimes in the African culture, so I've just got a new app here, and it's causing absolute mayhem here. So I'm going to get there any moment now. Excuse me. This will be going into the bin. Now, what does the blessing mean? When I speak over my children, when I speak over my wife, when I speak over my church, when I speak over everything, I did 21 years in pro football, managing all the football stars, and they needed a lot of blessing because some of them were right curses. Blessing means this, to evoke happiness upon. So you can actually take somebody in your environment and you can actually bring happiness to them by what you say at your mouth. It means to release in the inner spirit of humanity a prosperity. And encouragement has killed few people. Very few people die of over-encouragement. You know, they're in the hospital with a heart attack. What happened to you? Well, oh, my family encouraged me so much I collapsed. No, it doesn't happen, folks. It doesn't happen. Very few pastors have died of encouragement. Shock, but not encouragement. Now, we either speak people up or we speak them down. Now, the word curse, and I'll say this to people of African background, does not mean demonic. When the Bible talks about curse in the Bible, it does not mean demonic. It's not demons, even though there are demons. The word curse in the Bible, in the Hebrew and the Greek, means to limit, to top off. So imagine a well with a piece of concrete on it. It's limited you, you can't get to the concrete. Imagine a chimney with a top on, no smoke can come out. So when the Bible says blessings and curses, that word curse means you limit people. So some of you have been limited in your life. Somebody's put something on you that stopped you becoming the person God destined you to be. They've limited you. They've put you down. They've stopped you, either emotionally, physically, mentally, socially, financially, sexually. They put something that stopped you being the person you could have been if they hadn't have done it. Now, of course, the great thing is, the Bible doesn't say you need 16 hours of intensive counselling, and it wrecks a lot of occupations, this, because the Bible says, if anybody's cursed you, limit you, bless. A blessing always destroys a curse. Same as an antibiotic destroys illness. No, you don't spend 14 hours casting demons out. I just bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you. And I pray blessing on you, and that destroys the very curse. You say, it can't be that simple. Of course it isn't. We've got to face up to our responsibility. Ephesians 4 says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good, to build people up. Matthew 15:11, it's not that which goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but that which comes out of it. And some of you maybe have been abused. Jesus, having heard Peter declare that he was the Christ, the Son of the living God, gave him authority to bind and release. We have that power. So then, quickly going on. There is the added difficulty of the abuser being a respected person within the life of the abused. Here's the problem. When the person who's abusing you is so respected by other people that you're trapped. How can you say that about a relative? How can you say that about a man in the community, a woman? How can you say that about your pastor? I'm dealing with pastors all the time that are abusing people in every area of their life. They fear me like the plague. See, cases of abuse are often seen through the abuse of power. You can use power over somebody. A father, a relative, a teacher, a minister, a boss. How do you deal with that? There's the added difficulty of the abuser being a respected person. Their position of trust freezes the emotions of the abused. So did that really happen? Who would ever believe him? Why me? We've seen that with both the Catholic priests and we've seen that with Pentecostal pastors. I've actually been used in exposing those things. The delegated power that they have within the life of the abused is used as a license to the abuser to be dominant in that abuse. Added to that, the culture of the person. If you come from a culture which learns to submit. So when I first had Africans in my church, I wondered why those from some African countries wouldn't look at me when they talked to me. And I thought it's because they thought I was a white man and we'd suppressed them in slavery. Until somebody said, no, if we look at you eyeball to eyeball in our culture, we're challenging your authority. So we look away as a maid of honour. Then I wondered why a lot of other Africans, so they curtsy and bow before me. And I think, we don't do that as white people. But that's not because I'm a white man and I'm superior, that's because that's the culture again. Then I went to one Nigeria house, I wondered what was happening. And this doctor lay on the floor, put my foot on his head. And I thought, never done this before. And I'm thinking, does he want me to squash him? Well, you just don't know. And apparently he's saying, I submit to your authority. It was a cultural thing. And if a person who's in that authority is abusing you, you feel inadequate and you feel unable to challenge that. Because you've been bred into you that you are attacking authority. So be it a Roman Catholic, a Pentecostal, whatever, there's often an emotional challenge that needs to be overcome before violation can be addressed. The law of this land, especially in the UK, takes seriously anybody in authority abusing people. That's why if I find a teacher or a minister or somebody who's in charge of people who should have trust abusing them, they go to prison longer. Did you know that? The judge is very rarely tolerant with them because he says you are in a place of trust where people have trusted you, they've put their life in you, you're a doctor, you're a teacher, you're a minister, and you've abused people physically, emotionally, financially, sexually, so I will teach you a lesson. So if the law sees that badly, you've got to see that badly. You must be released from that. Ezekiel 34 is God speaking about how God's going to deal with pastors who abuse the congregation. He said, you fleece them. All you do is take the money off them so you can have a big car, a big house, and lots of holidays. He says, oh, I'm going to get you, boy. It's gone quiet. Because a man's a pastor, it doesn't mean you're paying lots of more money than anybody else. But you're paying well. Now, how can we be violated? 10 more minutes. We are, according to the Bible, made up of 4 components. It's the number of man. Mind, body, soul and spirit. There are 4 parts. Jesus said you should love the Lord your God with your mind, your body, your soul and your spirit. There are 4 months, 4 seasons. Normally 4 weeks in a month. 4 is the number of man. 3 is the number of God. Jesus as man and God, 7. Perfect number. The numeracy of the Bible. So there's 4 parts that we can be abused in. The body, the physical capacity of the individual. We can be abused there. Physical abuse, beatings, torture, sexual abuse, food-related, deprivation of food, starved, like some little children have been starved, to get the demons out of them. It's also noted that disablement can attract physical abuse. Because you're disabled or you're old or infirm, people can abuse you, as we see that in care homes. So you can be abused that way. In your mind, the thinking capacity of the individual, grooming, which is the conditioning of the way people think. Excessive verbal abuse that undermines the individual's thinking capacity. Taking over the thinking process. You don't have to worry anymore, I've done all the thinking for you. I know what's best for you, you just give me your money. Abdicating your own decision making. Now your soul is your personality that makes you different to me. You like different music to me, you like different food to me, you have a different personality to me, that's your soul. That can be attacked. That's the faith, that's the personality of the individual. Destroying the personal dreams and ambitions of the individual. Neutralizing the spirit of the individual's personality. Removing the option of independence for submission to others. So your very personality gets put down and crushed by other people. So you become a clone. You think you're a clown. But God said that you're special. And then your spirit. The faith of the individual. The radicalization of a person's faith. We see that with the Muslims and even some Christian groups that go into community and lock themselves away and kill themselves. And what happens is they're abused spiritually. The persecution of a person's faith. Ridicule because of your faith. And you're abused because of it. You lose certain privileges because of your faith. All of these are part of these, can also be affected by racial, cultural or gender abuse. A man called Edmund Burke said this: the greater the power, the more dangerous the abuse. We have before us this week the Prime Minister taking action to stop community abuse of young girls. Someone said female genital mutilation targets little girls, baby girls, fragile angels who are helpless, who cannot fight back. It's a crime against the child, a crime against humanity. It's abuse. It's absolutely criminal, and we have to stop it, because there is no spiritual, and there is no practical, and there's no medical reason it should happen. It's cultural, and that's abuse. The Christian faith doesn't tend to cope with violation well. It needs to be both spiritually and legally cognitive as to the helpful way of reaching many. Many abused people who enter our doors as a church and our communities are frightened, petrified, and embarrassed to ask. I was speaking about the fourfold composition of a human. I would be true that violation is not conveniently isolated to only one of those. The chances are, if you've been violated in one of those areas, it's affected all the others. If we take sexual abuse and rape, regardless of race or creed, unwelcome sexual activity affects the fourfold composition of a person. The way you think, the way you live, your spirit and your mind has all been polluted, regardless of where you come from in the world. That sense is sacred to you, and it's being violated. There is the obvious physical trauma. This can have a lasting psychological effect on the individual. Emotionally, it can have a long-term damage, and spiritually leave the abused confused and often feeling alienated in their community. Jesus shows in the extreme cases how true Christianity deals with an abused person. So, John 4, Jesus meets an abused woman. What does he do to help her? Number one, he sends his disciples into town to buy food, so protecting the woman from embarrassment. So he made sure that what was going to come out was not seen in public view. John chapter 4. He says to the disciples, go buy food, gets them out of the way, and Jesus sees an abused woman that he wants to deal with. Number two, he publicly meets her for two reasons. One, he is not embarrassed to identify her with the situation, and secondly, he does not compromise himself with a woman in a room on his own. I counsel women with another woman there, and I have a camera, no sound, so she's protected. That's for her, not me. We do not counsel people in these situations locked away with opposite gender. We don't do that. And if the person is homosexual, you don't lock them away with the same gender, because you bring that into temptation. That's wide wisdom. So he goes in a public place where everybody can see him. Isn't he great? He does not compromise his or her integrity. That's for her protection and his. He actually makes himself vulnerable by asking her for a favour. You see, when you see vulnerable people, they don't think they can do anything for you because they've got no value. They live in marriages with no value. They're doing jobs with no value. They're in ministry without value. They're kids without value. And now there's this super-duper superstar comes on the screen and he says, excuse me, sweetheart, can you get me a glass of water? That's not a lot for you, but it blows her away. Don't you know who I am? If you knew who I was, you wouldn't ask me for that. If you see, she's beginning to talk to him already. If you knew who I was, he said, if you knew who was talking to you, you'd be glad I was talking to you. Because I got the answer to your problem. See the wonderful way he's dealing with it? He's giving value back to the woman. She talks about her race, she talks about her religion, she talks about... Number four, he reacts to the gesture of cultural and religious grounds. He overcomes all that. Number five, he now begins to minister to her and lovingly draws out the 5 husbands have left her, and the man she's living with won't marry her. He realises this woman's had an abused relationship, so the 5 men have divorced her and used her body, gone out, and the man who's living with her now refuses to marry. And Jesus does not condemn her in this, does not condone her in this, but he's giving her an opportunity to confess it so she can be free in this. And she's begging him now, give me this water. Give me this so that I can feel free again. I can be whole again. I can feel clean again. That's what water does. And the proof of the pudding, she goes to all those men who abused her and forgave them. And said, if only you'd have known him, you wouldn't have abused me, and I wouldn't have let you. And they said, we first believed because she was different, and now we believe because we are different. See, when you start dealing with abuse, it sets a big chain reaction off. It either brings the abuser to judgment, or it brings the abuser to salvation. And with no guilt or shame to the violated. I would normally have a close friend, as I said, or a chosen person accompany them. I often move in the Holy Spirit in revealing either the total or elements of the abuse. It's then essential to integrate the person back again into their community after the situation has been exposed. Don't leave them on the shelf. Bring them back in. Bring their value back. You may be sitting here today thinking, I've never been abused, and I've never abused others. Really? How about the abuse of confidence, of information? Somebody's told you something and you've gossiped it. You've abused them. Have you never shared information or a conversation that you pled secrecy to? Has they never done that to you and you feel violated? In doing that, you have violated trust and confidence. I find that there must be rules for confidentiality. Yes, we say to people, if you tell me this, I'm going to have to divulge it to the law. And I state this, if that's what we're doing, I tell people that. See, if you've committed a crime, I'm going to have to phone the police. I can't keep that. Let me quickly cut a lot of this out because of time. Let's get to the punchline now. So the punchline is, if we've got violation in our life, there's a paralysis somewhere in our mind. We're not living in the potential that we were created to have. And we may, by the outside, be successful in business, medicine, education, ministry, but deep down, there is a violation. Emotionally, physically, financially, somebody's ripped you off, taken money off you, you gave it for a good cause, you feel embarrassed, you shouldn't have done it, you blame yourself, you're too embarrassed to talk about it, you've given us this massive offering somewhere, the guy's done a runner with it, you feel terrible, you need to get free today. Or it stops you understanding the value of money in future, and stops you being generous to people in the future. And some of you have been sexually abused, and we don't want to talk about that here today specifically, but you've carried that all the time, and that's affected you. You might even be married now, but it's affecting you. And it will affect you, because it's not been dealt with, it's unfinished business. Some of you have been verbally abused, some of you have been told you're a failure, you're useless. I had that all my life. Stopped me doing anything. I wouldn't apply for any job because I knew I wouldn't get it because I wasn't good enough. Then I finished up in the top 300 people in the world in my profession. I managed 700 of the country's leading footballers, went around the world lecturing. Used to lecture at Oxford University and other places. A guy who couldn't even write his name. But I had to be set free from that. Or I'd be a 59-year-old blithering idiot. I'm passionate about this. And it's not hours of deliverance. Sometimes if people have been playing with the occult, they need that. No, just comes a time when you say, and it could be after this wonderful conference, now it's 4:30 and I've had enough of this. I'm not going to carry this anymore. I don't have to know what it is. Some of you may need to go and see a pastor or a counsellor to talk it all out, because just one prayer isn't going to take away the sexual violation from the time you were 7 up until you were 14. Which means something to somebody here. And one prayer isn't going to solve that, but it's telling you today there's a way back. Amen. It's telling you this afternoon there's a way forward. Amen. It's telling you today that it wasn't your fault. And even if it was your fault, it can be forgiven. Amen. And maybe we've got a violator here. Maybe you've got the person who's the abuser. You're putting somebody down. You put your kid down. You put your wife down, you put your husband down, you've put your congregation down, you put your pastor down, and you actually are the abuser, and you never knew you were an abuser till today, and you realise now the way have to be like me? No, he doesn't have to be like me. Is he going to take over from me? No, he's not going to take over from me. He's not going to be a preacher. He's a photographer. He doesn't have to be, to keep the dynasty of Dave Carr Ministries going. To hell with that. I want him to be what God wants him to be. He's got 2 lovely kids. He's got a great wife. They're all born again. He's a photographer. He's got his own life, his own friends. He's there every Sunday. He's blessed, and I love him, and I've never even expected him to take over the church. This is not a family affair. Church is a family company, but it's God and Son, not me and Son. Are you getting the message this afternoon? It's for you to become the person that you're always destined to be. And some of us do not know, but the Bible says it may not yet appear what we shall be, but when we see him, we will. We will. We can. We can, Pastor. We can be like him. So I count it a privilege now, and I've done ever so well. I've only gone, no, I haven't gone over, because I was 10 minutes short of taking over, so I'm all right. I believe in being honourable, otherwise you'll pick me up and throw me out. God, I see that hand. God bless you. God bless you, sister. I see that hand. I'm an ex-evangelist. She just put her hand up and I saw it straight away. I am African, aren't I? Hang on, hang on. Oh, glory. I feel better already now. Thank you, Jesus. It's good to have a laugh, because inside some of you are crying. I've exposed something today. I've stirred something up. And today you're sitting there, some of you, and thinking, I've never had the opportunity. Never had the opportunity, because it's been too sore to deal with that. I want to promise you this now in the next couple of minutes, and I'm going to pray. I'm not going to have the word of knowledge over you. I'm not going to point to you and say violation sexually, financially, verbally. I'm not going to do that at all. You've got nothing to fear with me. I only do that in a very private situation to help you. And I'm just asking you now in these next few moments to lay your culture down. Don't think Zimbabwean or Ghanaian or Nigerian or English or Welsh. Don't think any of that. Because this is the same right across the... Jesus spoke to a woman that was not his culture. She said, I'm not your culture. He said, what I'm saying to you is nothing to do with culture, to do with creation. No matter the colour of our skin, our accent, what our passport says, we are God's children. We are created in his image. We suffer the same violations. They're just coloured differently. And I know this afternoon I'm standing here with people who in their life have suffered violation. It's got to finish. Or you'll get to the time when you die and you'll stand and look back at your life and think, if only I had. What would my life have been if that hadn't happened? May you never have on your gravestone, if only. So I'm just going to close in prayer and hand back. And while we close our eyes, if you can say, I was bullied, it's sexual, it's financial, it's verbal, it's spiritual. But I know automatically now, I don't have to think about it, it's just come to the surface as soon as you spoke to me. It's there now. It's facing me again. I thought I'd got over this. No, it's just you've suppressed it because you haven't known how to deal with it. But I'm going to pray that the power of God, even if you're not a Christian, doesn't matter, the power of God is evident to you even if you're not. He can snap it, break it, and give you an opportunity to get over it. I've got people sitting in our church now that if they could actually tell you their background, and they cannot, because it's too bad. If they could stand up and tell you, and that's some of the most beautiful people in our church, and you think they've had an easy life. Some people in my church, you would cry if you knew what they've been through. And the reason is because they're not like that anymore. I said they're not like that anymore. I said they're not like that anymore. Because they're free. So we're finishing this day on the basis of you've learned to be great parents. You've learned how every one of us have failed up as parents, including me. I come to these seminars and go, I'm absolutely guilt-ridden. But I don't, because they've given me sound teaching. You've been to a good conference today. Yes. This is just for you now. So even if you're not a Christian, can I ask you to do something? Could you close your eyes? It's a bit like closing the curtains when you go to bed. You don't want everybody looking at you getting undressed. So when you close your eyes, you're pulling the curtains across to your soul. And then I'm just going to say this to you. You say, David, I need now not to get over it, not to bury it. I need now from today to go from this place to deal with this violation. If I don't know how to, I can chat to Rumby and the leaders and they can point me in the right direction. They can ask me or other pastors and we'll give you some direction wherever you live. But you say, in essence, even though it may not be solved today, I'm making a decision today that I'm not going to carry this anymore. It's not going to have my mind, my body, my soul and my spirit. I am not going to be dominated anymore. I'm not going to feel guilty anymore. I'm not going to feel unclean anymore. I'm not going to be put down anymore. That's going to finish today. This conference has taught me that it's going to finish today. So with nobody looking to keep your privacy, you say, David, will you pray for me now as you close? Pray that this violation now will be dealt with in my life. Just quietly put your hand up. I'm the only person looking. Yes. Yes, oh, quite a few of you. Yes. Thank you for your honesty. Just look for one more moment. Goes anybody else? Yes, sir. Yes, at the moment. Yes. Women, men, everywhere. Thank you. Thank you. Put your hands down. I believe that some of us have been abused with the mouth, and so we confess with our mouth the Lord Jesus. So I wonder if I pray, would you all pray with me just after I pray this? Because when we say something, it engages something. This is what we pray. Father God, I want to thank you that by your word you created all things. And by my mouth I am now confessing that that violation no longer will have control of me. My mind, my body, my soul, or my spirit, or my finances, none of my being. Today I am asking you to bring freedom to my life, freedom to my life, and create a clean heart in me. Renew my mind in terms of finance and in property.